I want to thank everyone who came down today to speak and to make sure your voices are heard. I share your belief that immigrants make our society stronger. That out of the notion of e pluribus unum, out of many is one, that is what makes our society, and it's from many countries and from many religions, ethnicities. We come together to make one society. I think that the purpose of both SB 54, which I wholeheartedly support, and the California Trust Act proceeding in 2013, which I also wholeheartedly support, is to differentiate those folks who are members of our society from those who are a danger to our society. I think it's also important to note there are some 800 plus violent offenses under SB 54 that allow law enforcement to hand those folks over to immigration for deportation because they have committed an offense which rises to a level that we think deserves that. The aim of this really is to protect our communities and to make sure that our communities feel safe. And the aim and intention of local law enforcement is to protect and serve all who are in those communities. And, it's interesting to note that a 2017 study by UCSD professor Dr. Tom Wong pointed out statistically that communities that have these types of policies are statistically safer. They have lower rates of crime because there is greater trust between law enforcement and the communities it protects. There is greater trust between a woman who's been a victim of domestic violence who is not afraid to call and report that crime. There's greater trust between a witness to a crime and law enforcement. And so I think that as we adhere to the legal standards of SB 54 and the California Trust Act, it's vitally important that we also adhere to the spirit of building trust and collaboration. And I think at times that means that we go above and beyond what is statutorily required to do everything we can in a very divisive environment and toxic atmosphere to make sure that communities know and have that trust that law enforcement is there to protect them and to serve them and not to facilitate their unnecessary or unwarranted deportation or removal from our country. I think the issue with the interpreter has been addressed. It was a mistake. It won't happen again. But I also think it's worth pointing out that, that mistake cost a family their family member. That mistake which somebody made ripped apart a family, and it deported someone unjustly who under SB 54 would not have been subject to deportation. And I think that it's a serious issue that we have to take seriously. I do have just a couple quick questions and maybe some encouragement. I understand the information is historically, well in advance of these laws, we had the who's in jail where you could look up somebody by name. But the transition from looking up someone by name to providing the full public listing of everyone who's there, what was the date? When did that? I understand it was before the law went into effect, but was it after the law had been initiated in the legislature?
I'm not sure the exact timing. It was within a couple of months before the law went into effect.
So I think the concern by the community there, and I'm not subscribing that this is what happened, but I think the concern within the community is that when you had to look up the person by name, it was a tool for family members. It was a tool for folks who had an interest in that individual. And then once the law came forward that was going to limit ICE's ability to be inside our jail and to access our databases and access our systems, that in response to that law making its way through the legislature and the very real likelihood that it would be passed and signed into law, that then there was a change made to that database to then provide proactively all of the names without someone being able to look it up as a way of getting around the spirit of SB 54. And I understand you're in legal compliance. And I would encourage you to strongly consider reverting back to the system that was in place before, where family members who have someone's name can look them up by name, but as opposed to just providing a listing of all of the names where someone like ICE could sit and just take every foreign name and look them up and see their status and then wait for them pending their release. I think that would go a long way to restoring trust. I also don't think that would in any way diminish the spirit of what you're trying to do and allowing that information to families. And I would like to see that considered because I think it's something that could go a long way and would not diminish the intent or spirit of that process. As it relates to the task force, some of the task force do comply with SB 54, right? In terms of reporting the arrest?
All but one. So all of them do. There's one exception that I'm aware of. Yes.
So I would also encourage your department, as you think about how we really fulfill the spirit of the Trust Act, to just not participate in task force that don't comply with California law, and to consider that as a factor. I understand the reasons for task force. I understand the reason for collaborations. But if all of them but one do something, then maybe that indicates that that one is probably in the state of California not doing it. And I would encourage you to consider that, which is also a step that I think would really go a long way towards helping the community feel better and feel stronger. If I understood your presentation correctly, we have changed the policy from the arresting offense to the convicted offense and the transfer offense in terms of who we turn over. Was that? I believe you spoke to that early. The change in the.
While the law allows us to rely on the judicial finding of probable cause on a qualifying offense to qualify for that individual for transfer to ICE,
Right.
we have taken it a step further and said, because it's just problematic to rely on judicial findings of probable cause, particularly when we're talking about charges from other states where
Right.
the laws aren't exactly the same, charges from other counties where the court paperwork is not the same as we're used to seeing in San Diego County. So we're going on a conviction basis. That's the information that's on their criminal history. It's very unambiguous, and we think it provides a safeguard above and beyond what the law requires.
I think that's a positive step, and I think that's a change that is greatly appreciated by a number of folks. And so I think that is progress. And I would also support Supervisor Cox in his effort to have this be an evening hearing that is more accessible. And it would be my strong hope and belief that we could do that next year. It seems not an unreasonable request in a public forum that we do that. And so, you know, I do understand and appreciate the difficulty that our law enforcement community faces. I also appreciate the stated belief by the sheriff that our goal is not to be immigration officers. If someone wants to be an immigration officer, they're hiring. Folks can go and apply there. Our job is to protect and serve all, and I would greatly appreciate consideration for those changes. To consider the name listing on the jails, and also to consider participation in task force. If the overwhelming majority comply with SB 54, then that would seem to be a reasonable thing to do, because almost all of them do that. The ones that don't are outliers. So thank you.